I live for the simple things.
Hey guys, so today is the first real study video that we will be doing on my channel. So I figured we'd start off with something pretty simple, and we'll go over the strategies and just the simple, easy, common sense knowledge that you'll have to know to take your SAT, ACT tests. So I decided that I was going to skip chapter 1 because, chapter 1 is basically what is the SAT, ACT, and, everybody knows what it is. So I decided to skip to chapter 2. So in this video, we're going to be going over our strategies, which include the personal order of difficulty, our pacing, process of elimination, letter of the day, use your pencil, and a change will do you good, and be flexible. And then after that is when we'll start actually doing problems and stuff. So let's get started. I'll read the passage, what it says, and then I'll kind of go into depth a little bit about, what it's trying to say. So here it goes. Strategies. You don't necessarily have to work harder to raise your ACT or SAT score, though it does help. You do, however, have to be smarter, because a smart test taker is a strategic test taker. Target specific content to review, apply an effective and efficient approach, and employ a common sense that frequently deserts many of us when we pick up a number 2 pencil. These 3 things, along with the following strategies, can make a huge difference. Each test on the ACT or SAT demands a different approach, and even the most universal strategies vary in their applications. The chapters that follow discuss these terms in greater detail, customized to English writing and language and reading. So, just to kind of tell you guys a little bit about myself real quick, about my test taking. I've always been a pretty nervous test taker, and every time that I sit down to take a test, I always kind of freak out, and that sometimes will make my test score lower, and it doesn't ever help me out. So I'm giving this a shot to see how it does, and I think that these strategies are going to be incredibly important to know and drill in your head as we are working through these problems here in the future. So basically, that's how I would summarize that first 2 paragraphs. Alright, so let's get into some actual strategies. So first we have our personal order of difficulty, or our POOD. If time is going to run out, would you rather it run out on the hardest reading passage or on the easiest? Of course you want it to run out on the points you aren't less likely to get right. On the English writing and language test, you can't afford to spend too long on questions you find the most time consuming and never even get to a bunch of questions you nail. The trick is to know how to pick your order of passages and questions in reading, and how to pace yourself in English writing and language to get to as many easy questions as you can. So one thing I've always done with my English writing portion of the SAT or the PSAT for me, I haven't taken the actual SAT yet, is on any of the hard questions, I just guess. And of course, it doesn't really affect you super hard if you guess, but obviously getting things wrong lowers your score. So I've always had a bad habit of just guessing and moving on. So what I think it's trying to say is basically, if you can't figure out something, then just, move on and, check out what's easier in the future, or easier in the later passages. Y'all get the point. Now, does a question look okay? Do you know how to do it? Do it now. So that's basically saying in the present, if you're looking at a question, does it look easy? If it is, obviously answer it. Does it look hard and maybe you'll get it wrong? Well, if you feel that way, then, I mean, the way that I've done it doesn't work, so I would move on. Later. Will this question take a long time to work? Leave it and come back to later. Circle the question number for easy reference to return. So, if you can't figure it out, for future reference, you can just, circle the answer. That way, as you're not circle the answer, circle the question as you're flipping back. After you're done with your test, you can go back to the hard ones and give it a shot. Give it a shot while you have only a certain amount of time left. Never. Here's something that I would assume you never have to do. Test taker, know thyself. Know the topics that are your worst and learn the signs that flash danger. Don't waste time on questions you should never do. Instead, use more time to answer the now and later questions accurately. So, basically, it took me 3 times taking the PSAT to figure out that, I needed to do something different. And because the way that I've been taking it hasn't been working. And, I mean, even though I've made high scores like a 1200, that's just because, I'm taking lucky guesses. But to basically put it this way, I believe that this is something you really need to know about yourself. You really need to know yourself before you go and take this test. Because when I was a freshman, I took the PSAT and I made a 1200 flat. And then I went to take the PSAT 10, which is like the next level, and I went up literally 10 points, and that was it. So I made a 1210. And obviously that's not much improvement at all. So we're trying to get somewhere with this. So one thing that I would definitely advise is know yourself. Know what you're good at and know what you're bad at. And what you're bad at is what we're going to practice in this book to hopefully make this right here not that much of a dilemma. Alright, so let's move on to the next page. Alright, so the next thing we're going to go over is your pacing. So obviously before reading this paragraph, I would assume that you want to know yourself before you start. So what we just went over, you want to know yourself before, that way you can learn how to pace yourself. Anyway, let's read the paragraph. When you're under the pressure of a timed test, every point counts, but stressing about getting to every single question could actually be the worst thing you could do. Well, I'm just going to stop right there and I'm going to highlight this. Now, I have many friends in my school that does this right here, about stressing about every single question could actually be the worst thing you can do. So, I mean, I made one of the highest grades on mine, and everybody else, and these are sophomores about to go into junior year, that are supposed to start taking the real SAT, and they're making low grades like 980s. And so whenever I ask them why, they'll be telling me, well, I want to get all the questions done. I don't want to miss out any. Well, I'm here to tell you guys that it doesn't count against you to skip questions. It does not count against you to skip questions. So I'm telling you, but by stressing out about every single question, about getting every single question done is the worst thing you can do. That is 100% true, and that is something that you need to know. Anyway, let's move on. When the clock is involved, we somehow seem to find the quickest way to do the wrongest thing, the proverbial careless mistake. And what's worse than coming to an easy question, a question you should get right, working through it too quickly and getting it wrong because you misread it? Is it better to attempt all of the reading passages if you only get 50% of the questions right? Or would it be better to do fewer reading passages and focus on accuracy to get 75% of those questions correct? Right there, you'd already be scoring 4 or 5 more points doing less work with option 2. And don't forget, there's no penalty for wrong answers. Guessing on that last passage will pick up another extra point or two, meaning that working smarter rather than harder actually pays off big. So out of this, I would have to say that stress is the number one thing that has hooked my friends, and I'm sure many other people down, and sometimes it's hooked me. The first time I took it when I was in 8th grade, I made something like a 960, and one of my friends, I'm not going to say his name, the very first time he was in 8th grade, he made a 1250, and I've still not made that because he was very calm. He studied, yes, but he was very calm, and he didn't freak out about getting all the questions right. So, that's just what you have to do sometimes, is just calm down, take a deep breath, and if there's something that you don't know, just skip over it and don't worry about it. All right. So pacing is not about figuring out how to get to every question. It's about doing the right number of questions for you. Mastering the art of effective pacing takes practice, but it's all about finding the number of questions you need to answer correctly in order to hit your goal score. For English or writing and language, there is no order of difficulty of the passages or their questions. The most important thing is to finish. Finding all of the now questions you can throughout the whole test, and skipping over the never questions as you go. Just don't forget to fill in a guess for those never questions. Obviously, whenever you finish the whole test, just go back to the never questions that you circled and just give it a handy guess. It won't count against you. So, process of elimination, PO. Take a look at the following example. What does the word strategy mean in the context of the passage? Well, I'm just a little side note. That's a pretty easy question. Anyway, kind of tough to answer this question without the context of the passage, isn't it? While the test writers aren't known for fairness, rest assured that you'll never be asked a question like that. But what if I told you that you could still get the question right without the passage? How? You might ask, well, let's take a look at the question again, this time with something test writers always provide on the verbal portion of the ACT and SAT, the answers. What does the word strategy mean in the context of the passage? A. Peacocks. B. Working smart to improve your test score. C. The Philippines. D. 5. Alright guys, well, this is an obvious. This is so obvious it's not even funny. It's obviously B. So, but I mean, the entire test is multiple choice. Something that my dad always told me is if it's a multiple choice test, I mean, don't let that freak you out, because you have a 25% chance of guessing right. I mean, 1 out of just 4 answers is the right one. So if you ever get to those never questions that you have circled at the end, then just look at it and mark out the ones that are obviously wrong, like freaking peacock and 5, and look at the last 2, or obviously that one's pretty dumb too, but usually it's the last 2 that are pretty close to each other and kind of tough that you want to choose. So it's much easier once you've got the answer choices to consider. You're still unlikely to see a question like this one on the ACT or SAT, but checking the choices is always the first and most important strategy to use if you want to improve your score. It's all about process of elimination. I'm going to highlight that right there because that is a big one. It's always about process of elimination. Before I even read this paragraph, I was basically telling you guys about that. So the correct answer is right there in front of you. You just need to get rid of the bad answers. For each and every question on the verbal portion of the ACT or SAT, there are 3 incorrect answers, which means that 75% of the test is garbage. Your task, start taking out the trash. That's a good metaphor because taking out the trash is pretty easy unless you're lazy. Anyway, Bad answers are all over the test, and they're generally easier to spot than the correct and often very well hidden answer. By starting with the answer choices and eliminating the ones that you know are wrong, you increase your chance of getting the question correct. Whenever you see an answer that can't be correct, cross it out with a slash. If it looks right, put a check next to it and keep reading. If it looks like it might be true, but you aren't sure, put a dash mark next to it. We will refer to these three marks: slash, hold on, slash, check, slash, my bad, slash, check, and dash as post symbols. On English writing and language and reading both, it's more important and often easier to know what's wrong and eliminate it rather than trying to find out what's right. In fact, on English writing and language, Poe is so strong that you may find few never questions. It's worth the time to eliminate what's wrong and pick from what's left before you move on. On reading, you may have absolutely no idea what you have read, but you'll likely know what you haven't and be able to eliminate a few wrong answers. Using Poe to get rid of at least one or two wrong answers will substantially increase your odds of getting a question right. So basically what I just told you guys, it's a multiple choice test. You have a 25% chance of getting it right. It's like flipping a coin and I don't know, dropping a little bouncy ball on each half of the coin. That sounded really dumb. Anyway, but it's easy. It's a multiple choice test. You've all taken multiple choice tests. If you can't figure it out, just circle one or look to see what obviously wasn't in the passage and mark that out. And with each one that you mark out, you have a higher percentage of getting it right. So don't stress yourself out and just trust yourself, trust your gut, and go with what you have to. Letter of the day, LOTD. Using the process of elimination on this test means that even if you're not 100% sure your answer is the correct one, you'll be able to make an educated guess and earn a raw point you might not have otherwise earned. But what about those questions that you either aren't able to eliminate any answers on or that are too time consuming? Since there's no penalty for getting a question wrong on the ACT or SAT, regardless of whether you're able to eliminate any answers or not, always have your LOTD, letter of the day, at the ready for questions you don't know how to do, don't want to do, or simply don't have time to do. There's one thing to keep in mind. Pick one letter for the SAT or a 2-letter combo for the ACT and stick to it throughout the test, or you can flip-flop, doesn't really matter. For example, always choose B on the SAT or choose A and F or C and H on the ACT. Since both tests have a mostly even distribution of answers, by maintaining a consistent guessing pattern, you have a much better chance of picking up a few free raw points than if you were to guess at random. And let's be honest, if you find yourself running out of time, scoring a few extra points without even reading a question is pretty awesome. So basically, I'm going to show you guys an example of how effective that is right there here in a minute. But I have to say that it was always a thing in the school that on multiple choice tests, if you didn't know what it was, we would just choose B. B was always the answer, or the classic Jesus is always the answer. But to basically put it this way, I'm about to show you guys why it's more effective, but just choose 2 letters or a letter and go with it. Just trust yourself. You'll be able to pick up more points. And let me show you an example of how that works. Okay, so here's my example of why this works, of why the paragraph we just read works. So I wrote down numbers 1 through 10, and I marked this one as random guess, and this one is the same letter guess. So on the other side, and I promise you guys this isn't fake, I'm trying to show you guys the power of the same letter guess. So on the back, I had my sister write down random answers. So like on the SAT or ACT, we'll just say that these are the correct answers. It's the answer key, it says it right there. So those are the correct answers. So on this side, I literally did a random guess. Those are my random guesses. And then I did the same letter guess. So right here, if we'll look, number 1, I put C. The correct answer is A. Number 2, I put B. The correct answer is D. Number 3, I put A. The correct answer is B. Number 4, I put C. The correct answer is B. Number 5, I chose D. The correct answer is C. Number 6, I chose D. The correct answer is A. Number 7, I chose C. And the correct answer is D. On number 8, I chose A. And the correct answer is B. Number 9, I chose B. And the correct answer is C. And number 10, I chose A. And the correct answer is D. Now, I promise you guys, I promise this is not fake. This is pure coincidence, and I was hoping to get one right but I'm telling you guys, I did this out of random, and I made a fat 0% on all of my guesses. Now, for my same letter guess, to show you that the strategy works, I chose to put C. So, C on all of them. C on all of my guesses. I was able to snag 2 correct, number 5 and 9. So instead of making a 0 on my same letter guess, I made a 20%. So this is why the same letter guess works. So this is a good strategy to keep in mind. So, all right, now let's move on. Use your pencil. Now, before I start reading this, it's a number 2 pencil, but I'm going to be working with this pencil because it's my favorite pencil. Anyway, that's not the point. Use your pencil. There is no doubt about it. The verbal sections of these tests have their challenges. With so much going on in so little time, you need every tool at your disposal to take down this test. That's why it's imperative that your pencil always be moving. Whether it's crossing out bad answers, underlining key information in the passage, or bubbling in answers a passage at a time, it all comes down to keeping you actively engaged in what you are doing. One of the easiest ways to start increasing your ACT or SAT score is to jot things down in the test book, by the questions, in the margins, next to the answer choices, and so on. Don't try to keep everything in your head. That's what the test takers or the test makers want you to do. Using that pencil to leave reminders or to call out relevant details is a key step for reaching your pacing goals. Every note helps to keep you focused and one step ahead of the test. So while this sometimes happens to me, but this kind of has to do with this, but as I was reading this paragraph, my mind started to get bored, and all that was happening is I wasn't comprehending what I was saying. I mean, I was, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So we'll just use this as an example. So let's say I was reading this, and the whole time I wasn't comprehending what I was saying. I didn't understand what it's talking about, but I knew how to say it. So I'm just saying words without understanding it. But whenever your pencil's moving, and I do this on my SAT tests, or on my PSAT tests, I'm always trying to keep my pencil moving. I'm always trying to be interactive with the writing by writing my own notes next to it. And it doesn't need to be like a long paragraph. It can just be, well, I think that's cool. So I'll write you can't really see that. So I'll write something down like it's cool. And, that'll help me interact with the sentence more. And that's why Oh, and I also happened to mark that's why it's imperative that your pencil always be moving. Obviously. Now I understand that more because I wrote a little note beside it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'm just saying that this does work. I do this. Anyway, everything about these tests, from the length to the passage sections and the questions and answers, is designed to put you through the ringer. Take control of the test and use everything available to you to make this test a little easier. Remember the P's and embrace your PO, pacing, pood, and pencil. Let's move on to the next section. A change will do you good. The practice in this workbook is designed to help you find the best way for you to take the test, but that means you need to be willing to give new methods a chance, especially if you want your score to change. As the saying goes, doing the same thing over and over again with the expectation of different results is the definition of insanity. Throughout this book, we will introduce you to all of the question types you'll encounter on the verbal sections of the ACT and SAT, and we'll show you how to strategically and systematically approach them to increase your score. Really give these strategies a try. And I'm going to say this myself, you definitely want to give these strategies a try, because some of these I haven't done and some of these I have done. And I mean, a 1200, a 1210, I mean, that's still relatively good. So I think by adding all of these strategies, I think I can do so much better. But anyway, if you don't get it the first time, don't just give up and go back to old habits. And obviously, that's something that we're going to try and break in this SAT, ACT practice series. You've likely been taking tests for a long time, and it may be hard to approach some of these questions in a different way, but we won't steer you in the wrong direction. Think about learning a new skill to add to something you're already good at. For instance, if you're a golfer learning a new swing, or a tennis player learning a new serve, it's not that your old swing or serve didn't serve you well. It got you to where you are. But in order to get better, you sometimes need to try things that might seem a little odd. At first, you might not be used to shifting the weight in your hips or adjusting the angle at which your racket hits the ball. But with practice, your new swing or new serve can take you to the next level. It just takes practice. So basically, this told me that you need to learn how to break bad habits. So it doesn't matter, because your old test-taking strategies, if they're not working, then they're bad habits. And it's something that you need to change. And heck, it's something that I need to change on some of the things that I do. If you wanna increase your score, which is obviously while y'all are here, then break the bad habits and try these strategies, because they are proven to work. Heck, I even showed you guys on that example. So now let's get to the very last thing. The worst mistake a test taker can make is to throw good time after bad. You read a question, don't understand it, so you read it again and again. If you stare at it really hard, you know you're going to just see it. I do that so much, and I really need to break that, because, yeah. And you can't move on, because really, after spending all that time, it would be such a waste not to keep at it, right? Actually, that way of thinking couldn't be more wrong. You can't let one tough question drag you down. Instead, the best way to improve your SAT or SAT score is to follow our advice, which is basically what I just said. So I'm going to start that. Number 1, use the techniques and strategies in the lessons to work efficiently and accurately through all of your now and later questions. Know your never questions and use your LOTD. Know when to move on. Use PO and guess from what's left. Now move on to the lessons and learn the best way to approach the content. So that about wraps it up for this chapter. And the next chapter we'll be doing is reading and writing workout for the SAT. So in the next video, when we're doing this practice stuff to learn how to answer some of these questions, this is when you want to break your bad habits by using these strategies. And if you mess up, that's okay. You're gonna mess up. It usually takes a person about 90 consecutive days to break a bad habit. And so once you start using those strategies more and more, you will see that your score will become better. And I'm not I can be kind of dumb sometimes, but I'm saying that common sense says that breaking a bad habit will make you better. So that is all for today, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Me Old Nerd.